Emma Collins was 28 years old, beautiful, ambitious, and obsessed with living a glamorous lifestyle. Her social media was filled with luxury restaurants, designer clothes, expensive vacations, and smiling selfies that made everyone believe she had the perfect life. But behind that perfect image, Emma was hiding a secret that could destroy everything she had built. Just 6 months earlier, Emma had ended her engagement with Daniel Brooks, a hardworking software entrepreneur who loved her with all his heart. She told everyone that their relationship had simply stopped working. Friends believed her story, while Daniel quietly accepted the heartbreak without exposing the truth. What no one knew was that Emma had already grown close to another man long before ending her engagement. His name was Ryan Carter, a confident businessman who owned a black luxury SUV and enjoyed living life without worrying about consequences. Their relationship remained completely hidden. They never met in public places, never posted pictures together, and always chose isolated locations where nobody would recognize them. One Friday evening, Ryan sent Emma a simple text. "Meet me at the old shopping center parking lot. 10:30 p.m. Emma smiled as she read the message. Without telling anyone where she was going, she got into her white sedan and drove across the city. The streets were almost empty, and within 30 minutes she reached the abandoned shopping complex on the outskirts of town. Only a few streetlights illuminated the vast parking lot. Ryan's SUV was already waiting. Emma parked beside him, stepped out, and climbed into his vehicle. For hours they talked about dreams, travel plans, and the future they imagined together. They laughed, listened to music, and believed the quiet parking lot guaranteed complete privacy. Neither of them noticed another car parked several rows away. Inside sat Daniel. He hadn't come looking for Emma. He had stopped there after a late business meeting to answer a phone call before driving home. As he looked across the parking lot, something caught his attention. The white sedan looked familiar. Then he saw Emma stepping into Ryan's SUV. Daniel froze. His heart sank as he watched the woman he once planned to marry embrace another man. For several minutes, he remained silent. He didn't walk over. He didn't argue. He didn't create a scene. Instead, he quietly took a few photographs from a distance, not out of anger, but because he knew the truth had a way of revealing itself. Then he started his car and slowly drove away into the night. Emma and Ryan never realized someone had seen them. As Emma returned home just before dawn, she believed their secret was still safe. She had no idea that this single night would become the beginning of a revenge she would never forget. The following morning, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about what he had witnessed in the parking lot. Every image replayed in his mind: the white sedan, Ryan's black SUV, and Emma's smiling face as she stepped into another man's car. He felt betrayed, but he refused to let his emotions control him. Daniel had spent months trying to heal after Emma suddenly ended their engagement. She had told everyone that he was too busy with work, too boring, and unable to give her the exciting life she wanted. Friends sympathized with Emma, while Daniel silently accepted the blame. Only he knew how much he had sacrificed for their future. He had taken loans to book their dream wedding venue. He had already paid the deposit for the house they planned to live in. He had even designed a custom engagement ring with Emma's initials engraved inside. Yet, in a single conversation, Emma had ended everything. Daniel never argued. He simply wished her happiness and walked away. Now, after seeing her with Ryan, the missing pieces finally fit together. She hadn't left because she needed space. She had left because she had already chosen someone else. That evening Daniel opened an old storage box filled with memories, photographs from vacations, birthday cards, wedding invitations they had selected together, and handwritten letters Emma once called the sweetest words anyone had ever written. He quietly closed the box. Those memories no longer brought happiness. They only reminded him how easily trust could be broken. Instead of seeking revenge through anger, Daniel focused on rebuilding himself. He expanded his software company, hired new employees, and spent long hours turning his small startup into one of the fastest-growing tech firms in the city. Within a few months, his hard work paid off. His company signed a multi-million-dollar contract. His income tripled. He bought a luxury penthouse overlooking the city skyline and finally purchased the sports car he had always dreamed of owning. For the first time since the breakup, Daniel smiled. Then, one evening, an invitation arrived. It was Emma and Ryan's engagement celebration. Daniel stared at the elegant invitation for several minutes. Most people would have thrown it in the trash. Others might have ignored it completely. But Daniel had a different plan. He wasn't going there to cause a fight. He wasn't going there to humiliate anyone. He was going to let the truth speak for itself. As he folded the invitation and placed it neatly inside his jacket pocket, he looked out of his office window and quietly whispered, "Sometimes, karma doesn't need your help, it only needs perfect timing." With that thought, Daniel began preparing for the night that would change Emma's life forever. The grand ballroom of the Grand Crescent Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and elegant decorations. Fresh white roses covered every table, soft violin music echoed through the hall, and nearly 300 guests had gathered to celebrate Emma and Ryan's engagement. Emma wore a stunning silver designer gown, smiling confidently as photographers captured every moment. Ryan stood proudly beside her, greeting business partners and relatives. To everyone present, they looked like the perfect couple. Emma believed the past had disappeared forever. Then the ballroom doors slowly opened. Daniel walked inside. He wasn't wearing an angry expression. Instead, he looked calm and confident in a perfectly tailored black suit. Months of hard work had transformed him. He looked healthier, more successful, and completely different from the broken man Emma had left behind. Whispers spread across the room. "Isn't that Emma's ex-fiancé? What is he doing here?" Emma's smile faded for a brief second before she forced herself to remain composed. Ryan noticed Daniel but assumed he had come only to congratulate them. A few minutes later, the master of ceremonies invited guests to share their blessings for the newly engaged couple. To everyone's surprise, Daniel slowly walked toward the stage. The room became silent. Daniel picked up the microphone and smiled politely. "First of all," he said, "I'd like to congratulate Emma and Ryan. I genuinely wish both of you a happy future." The guests nodded, expecting a short congratulatory speech. But Daniel continued. "There's only one thing I'd like everyone to know before tonight ends, not to embarrass anyone, but because every relationship deserves to begin with honesty." Emma's heartbeat quickened. Ryan looked confused. Daniel displayed a timeline that showed the sequence of events during his previous engagement with Emma, explaining that there had been overlap and misunderstandings about when relationships had begun and ended. He focused on facts rather than insults and avoided making accusations beyond what he could support. The room fell into complete silence. Several guests exchanged shocked glances. Ryan slowly turned toward Emma. "Emma," he asked quietly, "why didn't you tell me any of this?" Emma struggled to answer. For the first time that evening, confidence disappeared from her face. Daniel stepped away from the microphone. "I didn't come here to ruin anyone's life," he said calmly. "I came because every strong relationship deserves to be built on trust." Without another word, he handed the microphone back to the host and walked toward the exit. No shouting. No insults. No celebration. Just silence. Behind him, the ballroom remained frozen as difficult conversations began and the couple was left to confront the truth together. The revenge Daniel had chosen was not humiliation, it was letting honesty speak for itself. The engagement party ended much earlier than anyone had expected. The music stopped. The laughter disappeared. Guests quietly walked out of the ballroom, whispering among themselves. What was supposed to be the happiest night of Emma's life had turned into a night full of difficult questions and uncomfortable silence. Ryan didn't say a single word during the drive home. Emma tried to explain. "Ryan, please let me explain." He kept his eyes on the road. "I asked you one question tonight," he said calmly. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" Emma looked down. "I was afraid I'd lose you." Ryan sighed. "And now you've lost my trust." Those words hurt more than any argument. The following weeks became the hardest period of Emma's life. Ryan became distant. Their conversations turned into arguments. Every time Emma answered a phone call or came home late, Ryan couldn't stop wondering whether she was hiding something else. Trust, once broken, was almost impossible to rebuild. One evening, Ryan finally made his decision. "I don't want to spend my life questioning everything you say," he told her. "A relationship without trust can never survive." He quietly removed the engagement ring from her finger and placed it on the table. "It's over." Emma burst into tears, but Ryan walked away without looking back. For the second time in less than a year, Emma watched someone she loved leave her life. Meanwhile, Daniel's life moved in the opposite direction. His company won another major contract. Business magazines featured his success story, praising his honesty, discipline, and leadership. He purchased a beautiful home for his parents and established a scholarship program to help underprivileged students study computer science. People admired him not because he had exposed someone's mistake, but because he had refused to let heartbreak define his future. He never spoke badly about Emma. Whenever someone asked what had happened, he simply smiled and replied, "Some chapters are better left in the past." Months later, Emma accidentally saw Daniel being interviewed on television after receiving an award for Entrepreneur of the Year. As she watched him thank his family, employees, and mentors, tears filled her eyes. For the first time, she understood something she had never realized before. Daniel's greatest revenge had never been exposing her. His greatest revenge was becoming a man who no longer needed revenge at all. Emma looked at the engagement ring still lying in her drawer. It reminded her that one dishonest decision had cost her 2 relationships and the respect of many people she cared about. That night, she whispered to herself, "Karma doesn't always arrive with anger. Sometimes it arrives as the life you could have had, if only you had chosen honesty." With tears in her eyes, Emma finally accepted that the hardest punishment wasn't losing Daniel or Ryan, it was living with the consequences of her own choices. A year passed. Life had completely changed for everyone. Daniel's company had become one of the fastest-growing technology firms in the city. Newspapers featured his success, business magazines invited him for interviews, and he was known not only for his achievements but also for his honesty and humility. Despite his success, Daniel never spoke publicly about Emma or what had happened. He believed that carrying hatred only keeps old wounds alive. Emma's life, however, was very different. After her engagement with Ryan ended, she left her job and moved into a small apartment. The glamorous lifestyle she once enjoyed disappeared. She spent many evenings alone, thinking about the choices that had brought her to this point. One afternoon, while attending a charity fundraiser, Emma unexpectedly saw Daniel across the hall. He was talking with guests, smiling confidently, and greeting everyone with kindness. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she slowly walked toward him. "Daniel." He turned around. For the first time in years, they stood face to face. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I've wanted to say this for a long time," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I hurt you, I lied, and I made choices that I regret every single day." Daniel remained silent for a moment. Then he smiled gently. "Thank you for saying that." Emma lowered her head. "I don't expect you to forgive me." Daniel replied calmly. "I forgave you a long time ago, not because you deserved it, but because I deserved peace." Emma looked at him, surprised. "You never hated me?" Daniel shook his head. "Hate would have kept me trapped in the past. I chose to move forward." A tear rolled down Emma's cheek. "I lost everything." Daniel answered softly. "No, you lost trust. And trust is much harder to rebuild than success." For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Daniel extended his hand. "I truly hope you find happiness someday." Emma shook his hand with trembling fingers. Thank you, and congratulations on everything you've achieved." Daniel smiled one last time before walking toward the exit. Emma watched him disappear through the doors. At that moment, she finally understood the lesson life had been trying to teach her. Real revenge isn't about destroying someone else's future. It's about building your own. As she left the charity hall, Emma looked up at the evening sky and quietly whispered. One dishonest choice can change your life forever. But one honest decision can be the beginning of redemption. From that day forward, she chose to rebuild her life with honesty, accepting responsibility for her past instead of running from it. And Daniel? He never looked back. Because the greatest victory isn't making someone suffer. It's proving that no betrayal is powerful enough to stop you from becoming the best version of yourself. The end.